Could Mac Jones return as the Patriots starting quarterback in 2024? Plus, new defensive coordinator DeMarcus Covington reveals who will call the defensive plays. Busy show today as both coordinators talked to the media. My name is Harrison Graham. Before we get into all of that, you want to help us out? You want to get a new Patriots mock draft? Well, like the video. 250 likes means we'll do another mock before the NFL Combine. So hit that like button. We got you covered for a brand new mock draft if we get to 250 likes. All right, Nick Roloff, a.k.a. Rolly. Alex Van Pelt earlier today, when asked about the quarterback situation, when asked about Mac Jones returning, he said right now everything is on the table, that the coaching staff is in the process of evaluating everything on their roster right now. I'll give my early thoughts, and then you can chime in. This kind of just feels like general coach speak to me. But he didn't close the door on Mac being back.
No, he didn't close the door, and, well, this isn't the first time we've heard this either. Excuse me. Mike Reese of ESPN said that not everyone in the building of New England is sold on needing to move on from Mac Jones. Doesn't say it's a large portion of the organization, but there is a portion. I'll say this. Obviously, I don't have any input on the team, nor does Harrison. But Mac Jones cannot return in 2024. That would be an utter disaster. I don't care if you want to spin, he didn't have any weapons or whatever you want to say, the O-line was bad. Even if they trade back, draft an O-tackle, get a wide receiver in free agency and in the draft, just Mac Jones is physically broken, maybe, and mentally broken as well. He has declined every single year of his career since entering the league, and I just feel like he lost the locker room. The guys on the defensive side of the ball didn't believe in him anymore, and they did not have any belief that he could go out and win them games and score more than 2 touchdowns a contest. I just think it's time to cut the Band-Aid off, rip it off, and move away from Mac.
Yeah, I just think you ripped the Band-Aid off here. Like, I guess if you want to go with some narrative, well, Belichick and O'Brien are gone. Maybe, you could salvage Mac here. I just don't think it's a good idea. I'll say this right now. There is no chance both Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi are on this team next year. And I think it makes more sense to just keep Zappi as the cheaper, younger, more rookie contract years left backup and try to get something for Mac. I'm not expecting much. Maybe it's a 6th-round pick. But I think you move on. I think he, behind closed doors, would probably prefer to move on. And you start looking at a new direction. And even if you don't take a quarterback at 3, even if this is kind of a transition year at quarterback, there are a lot of bridge options available in free agency if you need to go that route for a season that, quite frankly, would be upgrades over Mac Jones. So I'm not losing sleep over Mac Jones. I don't think he's going to be back, and I think this is just, look, he's not going to go to the podium for the first time as the OC and say, yeah, we're trading his ass. Like, he's not in our plans. Like, that's just not how these things work. So, obviously, he kept it general. We're not ruling anything out, he said, but, yeah, I don't expect Mac Jones back. Would you give Mac another chance? Maybe you disagree with Rolly and I. Type Y for yes, type in for no. Pin comment on today's show. Let us know how you guys feel about Mac Jones. All right, Evan Lazar had this in terms of quoting Alex Van Pelt: leadership, toughness, accuracy, and decision-making, which I feel like Mac's rookie year, you saw some of those traits, Rolly, but again, it just fell apart. I think the confidence is shot. Your point to, I don't think teammates believe in him anymore, so the leadership isn't there. It's not connecting. I still think in a vacuum, the accuracy is fine, although it fell apart this year. I just think, like, all these traits that we actually have seen from Mac, we didn't see any of them last year. So I just don't think it's to me too, Rolly, it'd be one thing if Mac Jones, like, player profile was such of a high ceiling quarterback that you're like, we still feel like this is worth trying to salvage. But even if you salvage Mac, what's the best case scenario? You've got, like, the 13th best quarterback in the NFL. Like, I just don't think the juice is worth the squeeze at this point, especially when you're picking number 3 overall.
Yeah, and I firmly believe they need to go quarterback, but, like, you just look at these 4 things that AVP labeled out on screen. Leadership, seems like he lost the locker room. Toughness, certainly did not display that, especially on the mental aspect of it. Yep. You could argue accuracy is fine, but the decision-making was horrible from Mac last season. You just need to go quarterback at 3. You need to reset it. There needs to be, honestly, I love Mac. I thought he was going to do great things after his rookie year. You just have to cut bait, though. You can't have him on this roster anymore. And I think picking 3 is a tough position in a way because you're not going to get your complete choice. I mean, maybe the guy you want falls to you, but there's no guaranteeing that. You're kind of left with whatever they give you in terms of Washington and Chicago at 3. Maybe that is your guy, whether it be Drake or Jaden Daniels, because it's certainly not going to be Caleb. But I think it's interesting to see where New England goes. I'd like to take one of Jaden Daniels or Drake May, but if they don't love him, like what will they do? That is something very fascinating to see on what New England ends up doing at quarterback. And I did want to make this note before we move on to our next subject. Of Van Pelt talked about the Patriots offense in 2024, and he said they will have a lot of similarities to what the Browns have been doing under Kevin Stefanski. Makes a lot of sense. He was the OC for them for the past 4 seasons. Did not call plays. Stefanski did, but was in there with the schemes and game plan from a week-to-week basis. So it's not a shocker. So expect a lot of zone runs and relying on the run. So Ramondre Stevenson should get a lot of workload this upcoming year.
Yeah, and we know that offense, is predicated on running the football, getting the play-action game going. I do think that fits Drake May's skill set the best. Like, May just strikes me as a guy you get under center and run hard play-action game with. Like, I think, like, ideally he's the guy if he's sitting there at 3. Now, again, we don't know who's going to be there, who's not, et cetera. But, yeah, I would expect the Patriots to try to be a team that's physical at the point of attack, run the football, and be complimentary off the pass game, especially with the rookie quarterback. You don't want to put everything on that kid's shoulders, regardless of who it ends up being. All right, we'll talk about the defensive side of the ball here in just a moment, but do have to talk about our sponsor first. That is Prize Picks. The NBA is back in action tonight, so if you want to get some picks going right there, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS to get a deposit match up to $100. We got a little 2-player entry here between Trae Young and Jaylen Brown. 9.5 games or more the rest of the season for Trae Young. We're going to take the less for 20-plus point games. And then for Jaylen Brown, we'll go more than 4.5. 10 to win 30 there. Remember, there's only about 25, 30 games for every NBA team left this season. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use the code CLNS to get started today. It's very simple. 2 to 6 player entries. You go more or less on tons of different statistical categories. Put your money where your mouth is with Prize Picks. All right, Rolly, we also heard from DeMarcus Covington, who got promoted from D-line coach to defensive coordinator. There was some chatter on who would call the plays. Could Gerard Mayo do it, even though he's a first-time head coach and hasn't done it before? He will not. It will be Covington. And he did say that the scheme won't change much. And, look, that makes sense. The defense is already good. You've got personnel. It's a good group from last year, which a lot of is coming back. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I would expect this defense to be the strength of this team again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not mad at Covington calling plays, and it kind of was expected in my opinion. A lot of chatter, as you mentioned, Harrison, was, well, could Gerard Mayo actually call plays? Coming from a defensive background, he was the one installing the game plan from the most part last year as Steve Belichick was calling the plays as they were both inside linebackers coach. It turns out it will be Covington. And listen, it's hard to say this stats and these stats you see on screen from last year will translate to 2024, but it is worth noting, like, DeMarcus Covington was the coach of the defensive line last year. Yep. And the Patriots rush defense, although it's not only the defensive line, linebacker, safeties, they get involved, but the rushing defense for New England was just outstanding. They were 4th in yards allowed on the season, 1st in yards per carry allowed, tied for 11th in rushing touchdowns allowed, and 2nd in the NFL in rushing first down percentage allowed at 20.8. This rushing attack on the defensive side of the ball was among the best in football, if not the best, when you look at all the statistics. And if Covington can bring that to the play calling as well, I think that is going to benefit New England. It's just all about... And it is a concern that we're going to talk about. Is like, he's never called plays. Alex Van Pelt hasn't called plays for an entire season either. Like, how is this going to work for New England where you have a first-time head coach, first-time offensive coordinator, and first-time defensive coordinator in terms of calling plays? Yeah,
I mean, look, it's a lot of projection, right? It's a lot of collaboration. I don't think this is a situation where Alex Van Pelt and DeMarcus Covington need to bank on doing this solo. Like, it's going to require a lot of collaboration during the week, getting ready for game plans, input on game day, like figuring out how to adjust on the fly. I mean, I think that's the biggest challenge of being an elite play caller on either side of the football. Like, all coaches in the NFL can come up with good game plans for the most part. Like, they're there for a reason. The great ones adapt. Like, not just throughout the course of a season, Rolly, but like during the course of games. And that doesn't mean you're never going to make a bad call or every call is going to be perfect or something like that. But you're projecting here. These guys have not done this as their full-time roles. Now, on the flip side, you could say, well, if you never hired people who haven't done the job before, well, eventually you just wouldn't have play callers in the NFL. So you've got that part of it. But on the same side, how many teams in the NFL, Rolly, right now have a first-time head coach, OC, and DC? I haven't gone team by team. I would guess that number is less than 3, and the Patriots are one of those. So, look, Robert Kraft is banking on the growth of Gerard Mayo over the last several years and believing in the core principles of this franchise, and he's chosen these 2 coordinators to lead these 2 units. So I'm fascinated to see it. Like I feel like this could go a million different ways. The good news is if it works, I mean, you could really hit the ground running faster than anyone really expects.
Oh, absolutely. And it is intriguing. Like, I want to know your thoughts on this as well in terms of you guys watching. What's your concern level on the Patriots 2 coordinators, whether it be Van Pelt or Covington? You can group them together. You can do it one-on-one. What is your concern level on both of them being first-time play callers? Let us know down below. I'll be honest, Harrison, I'm not that concerned with Alex Van Pelt because he's very experienced. He was an offensive coordinator in the past. He just hasn't called those plays. Now, Covington is the one that is a little concerning to me if I had to pick one because, well, he has never been a defensive coordinator. He's never called plays, so there's a little bit more of an unknown with him, whereas Van Pelt, he's led an offense before, just has not called the plays on Sundays. I feel like Van Pelt is going to be a good play caller. I don't know, call it a gut feeling call, whatever it is. I like Van Pelt. I feel like he's going to be fine. It's all about Covington to me. But I think he's a good coach, so we'll see if he can adjust on the fly during Sundays.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I agree with a lot of the points you just made. The one difference I would say, or just point I would make, is that while maybe there's more questions around Covington, he's got the personnel to work with. Like, this defense is in play. Like, it would have to, like, if the defense falls off and most of the key guys are back next year, that probably tells you he wasn't ready for this job, right? Whereas Alex Van Pelt, there's probably going to be a lot of new pieces offensively. There's almost almost a guarantee there's going to be a new quarterback. There's going to be multiple new offensive linemen potentially, multiple new receivers potentially. So, like, he's kind of like taking this job and he's sitting there right now not really knowing what he's going to have, whereas Covington, for the most part, kind of knows the personnel. So it'll be interesting to see. It's going to be fascinating, fun to see how it plays out because I think the unknown in anything in life is always interesting to see how it plays out, and that's definitely going to be the case for the New England Patriots here in 2024. All right, guys, we'll be back tomorrow with more Patriots coverage. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications. My name's Harrison Graham. We'll see you then.